we did get some UFC this weekend to kind of break things up and, you know, give us some live sports back. And I mean, the card delivered. It was a hell of a card.
Oh, it was a fantastic card. And like the interesting thing, like to tie in the quarantine element to it before we get through the going fight by fight. But it's interesting to see like the kind of theater of social distancing. Like, first of all, like everybody's been tested. Jack Ray Souza tested negative. He was sent home. So everybody tested positive. Yeah. It was a negative that he tested positive. That's what I meant to say, Brad. I think the listeners understand. But he had the Rona. He got sent home. Yeah. Everybody in the building on Saturday night was tested. They're positive or negative. I'm getting tripped up now, but none of them. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is no one had coronavirus, and there's still like everybody like some people are wearing masks, some people are not wearing masks. Joe Rogan, and all the guys are just split up across the octagon. Joe Rogan was complaining about that. Like John Anik's one side, Cormier's on the other. Joe Rogan's over here.
With that, but too, that didn't make any sense because right before the main card, then they like all stood together. And even Joe Rogan was like, "I don't understand why we're allowed to stand together right now, but not before." Like it made no sense.
Yeah, it's so a lot of this like it just doesn't make any sense. Like. And Joe Rogan was lipping it the whole night. And Dana White, did you see Dana White got asked in the press conference afterwards?
I didn't see that.
Like he was asked like, "Hey man, like Joe Rogan was like dissing this whole system like this whole time. Like, what do you have to say about that?" And Dana was like, "Yeah, like it was kind of stupid." Like, and he didn't say that. What he said was, you know, we're learning. Tonight, like Wednesday will be better than tonight, and next Saturday will be better than Wednesday night. So, like, fair enough. Yeah. It was definitely an executive decision. Oh, let's keep them apart without thinking about how many times everybody's going to be together. You got a guy rubbing Vaseline on every fighter's face. Like, it just, like, all this stuff.
And to the cornermen, what killed me is they would come out, and they would have the mask on their chin. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not going to put it on, don't wear it at all. Because it's visually better if you're just not wearing a mask than if you're visually like just wearing it wrong. Because then it looks like you don't care about the rules versus if you're not wearing it at all, and then it's just like, oh, you look normal.
Yeah, exactly. It just once you see the mask, it's brought to mind, and then you're thinking about it. If people forget, right? Like there's no, it's just all this stuff is so strange these times, and and a lot of it, like it's just. A lot of the precautions like the masks and keeping the commentators separate and all that, it's all just for the media to see, for the public to see, to kind of like anything to kind of, because there's a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of nerds out there right now that just for some reason seem to not want sports to come back. I think there's a lot of people that are just power tripping.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense because sports is for, even if you don't enjoy sports, just economically, they're so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they bring so much to, it's not just the athletes that make money, it's everything that surrounds it, everybody that puts on the event. So it's more than just the individual like organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and we'll get into that later in the show with the MLB stuff. Like I mean, there's so many naysayers that are saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? Like all the nerds, they're power tripping right now. And there's a lot of tattletales out there that are just watching, making sure you're social distancing. Like, man, I had a customer at Longo's the other day. She was going on, like, I can't believe how many people are not following the rules. I can't believe it. It makes me so angry. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I understand. Like, you kind of justify, like, you want people to be safe and healthy and stuff like that. But there's people that are just, they love being angry about stuff. And this is just, like, justification for being angry at other people for stuff. So, anyways, let's get into this card. Because it was
quick hits on the preliminary rounds first.
Let's go quick hits on the preliminary round.
All right. So first off, our guy Sam Alvey unfortunately lost to Ryan Spann, split decision. I think we both had Sam Alvey winning this fight, not just being homers, like split decision. It was obviously close.
Yeah.
So it's tough for Sam Alvey there.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we had Bryce Mitchell winning lopsided, unanimous decision over Charles Rosa. The scorecard here was 30-25, 30-25, 30-24. When's the last time, if ever, you saw 30-24 on a scorecard?
Yeah, no, that's unbelievable. I couldn't believe it when I saw that, and it was like, and I wasn't super shocked after seeing the fight, but I mean, 30-24, man, that's
was
a
that
widespread.
3 straight 10-8 rounds?
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
You're the math guy.
Yeah, 3 straight 10-8 rounds, which is sometimes it's hard to see 1 10-8 in a night, let alone that. That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Vicente Luque beat Nico Price by TKO in round 3. That was a good fight. Nico Price was beat up bad. Like Luque, for as quiet and calm as his persona is, like he's an absolute killer in the ring.
Yeah, and I think first time somebody's been, I mean, it was a technical knockout, but first time somebody's hit the floor.
Well, it was Dr. Stoppage, right?
It was Dr. Stoppage. Yeah, his face was brutalized. Like his eye was all big. Like, man, that was nasty. And for all the fans that haven't watched fighting in so long, seeing some blood,
especially early in the night.
Early in the night, it was a good way to get the night going.
And then next up, we had Carla Esparza defeated Michelle Waterson, one of the more controversial of the night, especially early on. And the scores it was split decision. The scores were 30-27 Esparza, 29-28 Esparza, and then 30-27 Waterson. So, I mean, when you have a 30-27 on the scorecards for either side, I mean, I think this one, like, I had Waterson winning this fight, I think probably 29-28. But the 30-27 on either side, I think it's just completely wrong, especially Esparza's way. So, again, the judges just get your head out of your ass.
It's so ridiculous. It's so blatant. Like, how do you go two completely opposite ways? Get basically saying it was you have two guys saying, oh, she fought a perfect game. The other person, no, she fought a perfect game. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you justify that? Like, how do you walk out of that arena, go to your wife after that? Like, just look her in the eye after making a decision like that. Either way, like, come on. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And it just shows too, like, fighting is physically probably the hardest sport out there. And it's also the only sport where you finish and you don't have a clear view whether you won or not. And two, the judges are here. Like, it's been a long story. We've talked about this a lot on this podcast, really, since especially got pronounced during the John Jones pay-per-view, where the judges are just they're horrible right now, and something really needs to change with the system. I think it's more of a system problem right now than a specific judging problem. The 10-9 system made for boxing doesn't translate to MMA, especially in a 3-round fight. But I mean, that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, for sure.
So next up, we had Alexei Oleinik beat Fabricio Werdum by a split decision. This was a shock for most people. They saw Werdum, former champion, come back off suspension, kind of having his way with Oleinik. And, Oleinik, especially in the first 2 rounds, really was just putting it to him. So it was a good fight and kind of shocking that Oleinik won. Yeah,
no, big upset. Like, there's a lot of really interesting shakeups in this as we get later into this card. Like, the shakeups were crazy, and I think that is exactly what we were looking for as fans, right? To go against what was expected. Lots of dogs just surprising people. I think that's really the story of the night almost.
Yep. And then in the next fight, when things really started to pick up, we had Anthony Pettis beat Donald Cerrone with a 29-28 across the board. Now, I think I had this one 29-28 Donald Cerrone, and I think it was pretty clear. Even Anthony Pettis afterwards was pretty, he was not confident he won. And how often do you see a fighter not confident in a win, especially once they come away with it? Yeah. So, I mean, I think Cerrone got robbed here, especially if you're Cerrone. You're looking at, got 4 losses in a row, first time in your career. All the losses have been to studs. Like, you had Ferguson, Gaethje, McGregor, Pettis along those 4, but that doesn't help the record whatsoever.
No, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to Cowboy's career after this. I think he's a guy that's going to keep fighting for at least a couple more years to come. I don't think it's a matter of him aging out and getting like older and losing his skills as much as it's just he's taken some big fight. Like his name value, all the work that he's put in the UFC has earned him some big fights. Yep. So kudos to the UFC for giving him that, and kudos to Cowboy for. I mean, that's a tough rap sheet in the last four bouts. Some of the best guys in the lightweight division, and then to have the third one. I think I scored that the same as you did, and I think that was robbery. I think Cowboy looked way more confident in the win than Pettis did after coming out of that fight, and then just the shock on his face when he lost. That was just a real shame.
And also too, because realistically, the third round was Cowboys up until he got poked in the eye, which the referee. Well, I'm pretty sure it was Keith Peterson who. Now knowing what Cruz said, which we're going to get to, is interesting.
Yeah, no, that is interesting.
But he blatantly was poked in the eye and reacted very vicious. Like, he reacted to it, and they said, keep going on. And Pettis really took advantage. I mean, like, no fault to Pettis.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he's got to do, especially if the referee doesn't call it. But if that eye poke gets called and Cowboy's got a chance to kind of get himself back together, he probably takes that round. And that is probably the swing round there.
Yeah. And the thing, like the ref, Peterson was looking like a WWE judge. You know, they get the tap down and then, like, he always looking the other way. Like, didn't see it. The fight goes on. Like, it's ridiculous.
Maybe he was, having a little sip of something.
Glug. You know, we'll get into that in a minute. But, yeah, just absolute robbery, both with the eye poke and then with the where the judges went for Cowboys. Such a shame. Like, I'm really curious to see what the UFC does with Cerrone next. I think, like, you got to give him somebody who like he can really beat, you know, in order to if you want to keep Cerrone around. You had an interesting like thing you said during the night. You said, well, it'll be interesting. They wouldn't do it if like Cerrone just became like anybody that was kind of up and coming, starting to teeter out. Just give him to Cerrone, you know, and
Cerrone put him into the UFC. I'd love for them to just, after the killers that Cerrone's faced, just to give him some kind of just you know, throw it up there, just get him to hit it out of the park, just give him a few wins, get back in there. And Cerrone's, of course, I'm going to take that because he's such a competitor. He wants the best of the best. And I mean, realistically, that's what he deserves, is keep fighting the best regardless. Yeah, but I'd love to see him just rack off a few wins.
Yeah, no, we love Cowboy Cerrone on this program, and it was real sad to see him lose, especially when we were pretty confident in the win, heading to the scorer's decision.
Yep. And then the next fight there was Greg Hardy beat Yorgan De Castro by unanimous decision. It's a pretty lackluster fight. I mean, two guys that were like. I despise Greg Hardy, and I was really hoping Yorgan De Castro really had the power to be able to put him away here. And even like Greg Hardy, he has a lot of power too, and none of them really used it. Like there was so much, like there was a lot of kicking, there was a lot of good leg work, but there wasn't ever really a situation where like either of them was in position to knock the other out, which was a lot of people thought was guaranteed in this fight.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is now like the headlines. Coming out of Saturday night, Sunday morning on this fight was like Greg Hardy has now proved himself, like he's now here to stay. And like, I didn't see that. It was a pretty one-sided fight, but at the same time, there was no fireworks, which, I mean, going to this fight, we were hoping for fireworks and it didn't deliver. It was pretty lackluster, as you said, on both sides. Yorgan De Castro, it's a shame. Now he has a loss on his UFC record. Which is it's a shame, but I mean Greg Hardy, it's hard to root for the guy, and I'm like I don't see what other people see when they say, oh, he's now proven himself as a player in this division. I
mean too, like in the fight, like he was just getting chewed up by leg kicks, and like he said to Daniel, he heard Daniel Cormier saying he's got to start checking the leg kicks. So he goes, oh, I did. And now I'm not a fighter. I'm not in there. But if you got to have somebody tell you to check leg kicks, you were probably not UFC level.
Yeah. And he's so top heavy. He's so like his legs are
top heavy.
Look pretty skinny in relation to his body. I was expecting, he was winning the whole way through, but there was always a chance that De Castro could just one like good leg kick could just topple him like a tree. And I was really hoping for that, especially as it got later in the fight. But yeah, like there's just a lot of, he's got, I think Hardy's a guy with a lot of talent, but without he hasn't really proven himself that he has the skills and the understanding and just, the knowledge to really be a high caliber fighter. I think that's still very much lacking. I mean, imagine if there was fans. Imagine if there was fans and there was no like Cormier to like you don't hear Cormier if there's fans yelling, right? And how does that fight go differently? And why did he hear it from Cormier and not his corner? Like that just makes no sense. Like so Greg Hardy, like, and of course, I mean, Greg Hardy could win a belt and we'd still be finding reasons,
but the thing is, like, he's not near the top of the heavy, like, especially the heavyweight division. You see so much competitive differences because there's so many guys in the heavyweight division that just go based on their size and pure strength versus I don't see in Greg Hardy an awful lot of skill. I just see kind of a raw athleticism, and he played pretty high level. Like he was a great NFL player. So I think he's just getting by on that raw athleticism and his size. And he's going to run into somebody who's actually got pure, like, lifelong MMA training skill, who's just going to put him out.
Yeah, and I mean, like, both guys in this fight, I mean, it went to decision, but it was by the end, like, both guys were gassed too. The endurance,
cardio was not.
Cardio was not.
That's shocking considering for Greg Hardy come from the NFL. I mean, I would assume just cardio would be through the roof.
That's something that baffles me when I watch Hardy fight, because I'm like, where, like, you're running around literally every play, like, you're starting and stopping every play for an hour of game time. Like, how does that not translate into a 15-minute fight? But yet I don't like it. Doesn't.
It must be just, like, it sounds stupid to say, but it must be just different types of cardio, which, like, there really isn't, but it has to be just something different in some way.
Yeah, because he does not look like he looks the size of an NFL athlete, but he doesn't seem to have the endurance in the ring or in the octagon.
And then the next fight here, we had Calvin Kattar beat Jeremy Stephens by knockout with an absolute elbow. It just hit Stephens on the button, and I mean, it was beautiful knockout.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. Just what we needed. The first knockout on the main card really got people into it. It was super great to watch. Like, I mean, his forehead just opened up.
Well, that was the second one too, because the first one hit him just square on the chin, and then that second one right across the forehead, where he was probably already out. Just absolutely beautiful. And I mean, going into this, Stephens missing weight by 5 pounds. Like, there was a lot of, like, Stephens was the underdog, but I mean, you miss weight by 5 pounds, you're going to go into the fight a lot heavier. Now, visually, they look pretty similar in size. It looked like either Stephens didn't balloon up as much or Kattar really ballooned up to catch him.
I think Stephens seemed to have more on the shoulders, though. That's where I kind of saw I didn't see 5 pounds more on him, but I saw a little bit. But I was kind of shocked to see how they kind of matched up pretty evenly.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Stephens is always game, but I mean, he's somebody too. I believe he's on a 4-fight losing streak now too. So it's somebody like similar to Cerrone, where he's been in the UFC for, it seems like, his whole career now, but he's on a little bit of a skid. So what do you do with him? Because he's earned his spot to stay, but you don't really know. Like, you're not going to put him up there with the top challenger because he just keeps falling down.
And I mean, also, I mean, insult to injury, you missed weight. So like you missed weight, and
you missed horribly.
Missed horribly. So, and I mean, that's something, like, in the fight game, in wrestling, in all the combat sports, weight is such a, like, it's an honor thing, right? If you don't miss weight, there's a kind of a dishonor to that. In a lot.
I mean, there was a lot more circumstances around this fight that might have played into it. I mean, he's the only one that missed, but you can kind of go off the, maybe if this was normal circumstances, they'd have had access, like they said in the broadcast, they didn't have access to saunas. And there's a lot of fighters that use the sauna religiously to cut the weight. So potentially just stuff like that just came into place, and he just wasn't able to get it down.
Okay, you turn on the shower as hot as it can go. You put a towel under the door so the steam doesn't get out. You turn off the bathroom fan, sitting there for a couple hours. Come on, you're a UFC fighter. You can afford the hot water, Make do.
And I mean, like he got to 145, and he's a big guy. I mean, he fought at lightweight early in his career, and since, I mean, he's made featherweight 17 times, but still, it's got to be a tough cut, and it's going to be harder the older he gets.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
The next fight on the card was Francis Ngannou beating Jairzinho Rozenstruik, knockout in about 2 blinks of the eye. It's actually 20 seconds, but I mean, when the replay goes now, here's the whole fight. It's quick. And I mean, the wild thing is Ngannou, he did a flurry, but he missed about 3 or 4 punches, and then finally just clipped him with the left hand, and it just put the lights out.
Yeah, it was more like he got Rozenstruik on his heels. That was the big thing. Like those misses just made like Rozenstruik back up, and eventually he just ran out of room to back up, and he caught him on his heels and just lights out. Like, yeah, there was a lot of missed punches, which was kind of nuts. Like, you didn't see it on the first go through. Yeah. Like it looked like almost everything landed, and you're like, holy shit! Like Rozenstruik, like, yeah, he's going down, but how is he taking all these hits? And then you see it again, it's like, oh, okay, like a lot of these are missing, but the ones that hit, they were clean.
But the thing is too, is like when he's getting like a check left hook is essentially what Rozenstruik down first punch of the night. Like if Ngannou like hits with his power shots clean. Like, I don't think there's anybody that can take it. And I don't really know if we've ever, like, the biggest one that he's ever landed was the Overeem one, which honestly was on more of a glancing blow than a clean shot.
Yeah.
And so if Ngannou ever fully lands clean with one of his power shots, somebody's in deep trouble.
Yeah.
Somebody's career honestly could end.
Yeah. He's a dangerous fighter. He is so deadly. Like, and Cormier too, he was joking like, I'll go in against him. And then he was just like, yeah, no, I'm not fighting this guy. That was some good character moment from Daniel
Cormier. You see Cormier? He actually came out the Sunday morning. He said, like, all jokes aside, if Miocic isn't ready for the trilogy, I'm not scared of anybody. I'll fight Ngannou for the vacant title.
That would be unreal.
But then Miocic came out and said, I'm not dodging the fight. I'm fighting fires. Like, I'm going to sign the contract. So, I mean, is that more of a play from Cormier's end just to get Miocic talking again?
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because, I mean, Cormier, he's more on Team UFC now than Team Cormier. So Dana White just said, hey, like, stir the pot a little. Let's get this stuff moving.
Yeah.
And then Cormier, hey, you get when these guys are headlining a pay-per-view, you get a nice paycheck.
Exactly. Now, I mean, for Ngannou too next, like the next fight, there has to be some sort of gold on the line, whether it's like Miocic, Cormier, the trilogy for the heavyweight title. But I mean, Ngannou, like his next fight either's got to be the winner of that one, or for the vacant title, or for an interim title, because you can't put him out there again without a championship on the line. Like he's more, he probably earned it before this fight. Now he's more than earned it. Like, I mean,
yeah.
What's wild is his last 4 fights, I think the combined time is 2.5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, he's really out there making statements. Yeah. And I agree. There's definitely got to be gold on the line for this guy, because what a rise. Like, we've been kind of waiting for this. Like, we've known almost that Ngannou was a serious player in this division and that he would one day go after the gold. So to see him,
well, he already has, right, against Miocic. Like he did that rise, and then he fell back down, and now he's going back on the rise again.
Now the redemption, making these big statements, that big knockout against Rozenstruik, like it'll be great to see him go for the gold now.
Yeah. And while we keep talking here, it looks like my video has just completely paused.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Shall we continue?
Yeah, okay. So now we're getting into big fights here. So we had Henry Cejudo beat Dominic Cruz by TKO round 2 with 2 seconds left in the round. Now there's controversy in this one. The fact that, I mean, Dominic Cruz was you could argue the stoppage for sure. I mean, he took that brutal knee, it dropped him, ate about 10 unanswered shots, but with 2 seconds left in the round, he was standing up.
Yeah.
And when the referee came in and stopped it, like, that's just simple fact. Like, he was standing up. Mm-hmm. And if you were standing up you have to your equilibrium has to be set, or else you wouldn't have the balance to stand up. With 2 seconds left in the round, I mean, I think you gotta let the fight go.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're a referee, you know how much time is left, and you see him, like, he was on the forward motion, like I think he was clearly moving upwards during that. So, hey, Brad, he's back.
Yeah, we had to rotate on the fly here.
Yeah, he clearly was moving upwards. It's just, I was so disappointed by this. Like,
I thought Cruz was gonna win this fight. Like I said on the last pod, I like, it's disappointing, especially for Cruz. And I mean, what he came out with afterwards, saying that Keith Peterson smelled like alcohol and cigarettes before the fight. I mean, like, that's a very serious claim. And Dominic Cruz is very reputable in the UFC, given his, like, commentating and all that.
Yeah.
So for him to say that, especially after his last loss against Garbrandt, he came out and gave a very great speech about life and everything. So it's not like he just jumps to blaming people.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't have a reputation as a sore loser, right? Which was and now you got to take it with a grain of salt, though, that this is coming from this guy after the fact, after a controversial finish.
Yeah. But still, like, it's gonna be interesting to see what the UFC does with this. Like, if because Keith Peterson, like, I mean, like John Anik says, no nonsense, Keith Peterson, right? Like, I mean, was he getting into some nonsense here?
yeah, some lots of nonsense, just glug, and going hard on those ciggies.
I mean, next time Cruz is on the broadcast and Peterson is the referee, like, what's he gonna say?
Yeah. I mean, it's stressful times, okay? These are stressful times, all right?
I mean, but, like, now, if you're the matchmakers here, like, I mean, we need to say Cejudo retired.
Yeah, I was so shocked. I was like, what is he doing? Man, it's unbelievable. Like, and it's not like...
You think it's real?
See, I don't know, because on one hand, this is a guy that's done he's done everything you can do. He's, like, gone to different divisions, won different belts. He's been to Olympics, gold medalist. That, like, he's done it all. Like, in terms of wrestling and MMA, he's done it all. He's got nothing left to prove. Why not retire on top? Like, if that's your situation, I know he's
and like
very
he said,
involved.
He said, I've been training since I was 11 years old. Like, it's essentially, like, it's more of like, I want to break.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's really heavily involved in, like, coaching. So
that's fair.
I think that's something that's kind of now, as he's getting older, maybe it's taken a little bit more of a priority. So on that hand, yes, I think it could be valid, but at the same time, UFC retirements, it's like everybody's out there being like Brett Favre, like coming in, coming out, coming back and forth, right? So you never really know when an MMA fighter is retired.
Well, I think he's probably retired till you add a 0 or 2 to his contract.
Yes,
and like, he's probably at a point where he's like, if that doesn't happen, I'm not coming back. And I mean, the bantamweight picture right now, there's no fights that are going to determine you to get that extra 0.
Yeah.
The only fights, like, in the future that can maybe happen, maybe when Dillashaw, like, let's say Dillashaw comes back, recaptures the title. That's a big fight to come back. But I mean, that's still probably, like, by the time Dillashaw comes back, works his way back to a title. Or some new stud that just is super popular. Or Cejudo leaves, like, bulks up, comes back at a heavier weight. Like, there's that, like, if he comes back for a money fight. But right now, there's no money fights for him. And I mean, all fairness to him, I mean, I think he's 33 years old.
Yeah.
He's been training like this since he was 11 years old. He's done everything he could possibly do. He's won an Olympic gold medal, the flyweight title over who a lot of people think is the greatest fighter of all time, Demetrius Johnson. Defended that title against TJ Dillashaw. Then went up and beat
steroids at the time.
went up and beat Marlon Moraes for the bantamweight title, and then defended that title against Dominic Cruz, who a lot of people think is the best bantamweight of all time. So on his record, he's beat who people think, like, the greatest flyweight, no question, Demetrius Johnson, potentially the greatest MMA fighter of all time. I don't think he is. I think it's GSP, but a lot of people think he is. And then the consensus best bantamweight of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a gold medal.
Yeah. So he's done everything. Like, and I think a lot of guys, like we've seen a lot of guys say, okay, well, I've done all I wanted to do. I'm not quite ready to say I'm retired yet, but I'm only coming back if the fight really interests me. Mm-hmm. And I think some guys say I'm going to retire, meaning to say I'm going to come back if the fight really interests me, but it's just a little bit better of a way. Cause then, especially if you have a belt, then it's like a question, do we just strip him? Do we, it's all these questions. I think it just makes it easier for everyone to say, I'm retired as of right now. I'm not in the UFC, and then go from there. Right.
And I mean, really, the UFC, it's better for the UFC too, because now the title's vacant. They can move on.
Yes, exactly. So you kind of say, okay, I'm not going to defend this belt anymore. I'm going to come back for the fight that really interests me. But if you just say, I'm going to come back then it looks like you're skirting defending your title, and you're kind of getting around that. And you, there's kind of a weakness that's associated with that, especially with a lot of guys. So I think if you say, I'm going to retire, then it's a lot easier to do.
If you're the UFC, where do you go next year? I mean, Cruz doesn't jump right back in for a title. I think I'd like to see him face maybe Jose Aldo at bantamweight now that he's moved down. 2 WEC legends, like they're both legends. They're both future Hall of Famers. Have them go at it. That sells for sure. And it kind of both, whoever wins that jumps right back in the title picture. But I mean, the matchup that I think has to be made for the bantamweight title is Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling. Either of them deserve to be in this fight more than Cruz, and they've been waiting a long time for it. So I think that has to be for the vacant title. It's not a sexy fight; it doesn't sell, but it's the
fair fight. And it's good on Cejudo for saying I'm just going to retire and leave the belt behind, because it clears up a chance for those guys. It really you like to see. It's sad to see a champ go. But at the same time, if you're just waiting in the wings, it's very exciting. Now, this is the start of a new era almost in the bantamweight with Cejudo leaving.
Yep, and it's gonna be like, I think it's a stock division too. Like I don't think they're in any danger whatsoever. Like Sterling, Yan, I mean, you got Cruz is still in there, Aldo jumping down. You got some other young guys coming up like Sandhagen. I mean, in 6 months, about 6 months from now, Dillashaw is going to be coming off suspension, and he's going to be on a tear. Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's not in any danger whatsoever.
No, I think I'm very excited to see what is to come.
And now the main event, we had Justin Gaethje, defeats Tony Ferguson by TKO in round 5. And now this was a shock. And Gaethje didn't just beat Ferguson; like he dominated him start to finish. Like any other human being other than Tony Ferguson would have been knocked out 20 times.
Yeah.
Like some of the shots that he landed that Ferguson just was walking through, but they just wore over the end of the fight. And it testament to how tough Tony Ferguson truly is for being able to withstand it all. But like Justin Gaethje, absolute stud.
Yeah, and I think Justin surprised even himself a little bit with just like if you always know that you're gonna win when you walk in, you have to when you go into the octagon. But that dominant, like I think he was just beside himself the whole fight. I mean, I'm real happy for him. That must have been such an experience. And now, I mean, this was a guy I've said on the program before that he's kind of a middle of the pack in terms of the ranked lightweight fighters, but now he's just kind of upped himself right to the top now.
He's an interim champ, number 1 contender now. He's the interim champ
now. So it's just unbelievable to see this guy's rise. It really kind of absolutely throws a monkey wrench in all of Dana White's plans.
Well, I mean, Tony Khabib 6 is not going to happen. I mean, it's just Gaethje saved the world, though.
Yeah, Gaethje saved the world.
That fight was supposed to be booked.
Because the world would have ended if they tried to do a 6th time around on Tony Khabib. So Gaethje, unsung hero there. But man, I'm still disappointed because I've wanted to see the Tony Khabib fight for so long, and like with everybody, it's just all these letdowns, and we got so close this time, but then coronavirus, and now maybe coming out of this pandemic, we may be able to start off the kind of the new world with Khabib Tony, and that's just not going to happen. But now we have plenty of things to do with Justin Gaethje.
Gaethje gets Khabib next.
Gets Khabib next, and that's going to be I mean, like imagine, like the guy that beats Khabib is Justin Gaethje.
That'd be wild. I mean, I think I realistically think he matches up all right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's a good fight. I mean, I think Khabib probably still wins it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good fight. I mean, but what do you do with Tony now?
See, I don't know. Like I was thinking, what if you put him up against Conor McGregor?
Tony?
Yeah, Tony.
I don't mind that. I don't think I don't like. I think probably Tony versus Poirier is probably the fight to make. I would think, or like maybe a
Pettis?
lower. Nah, Pettis I think is gonna stay at welterweight, and
Okay.
they just had that fight at 229 too, right? So I think you give him like a Poirier, somebody like that. You know what I mean? I think that it keeps him around, keeps him at the top. But like in McGregor doesn't want to fight Ferguson.
But think about like, yeah, but at the same time, like think about how like hot that would sell. Two huge names in the lightweight division, two guys that know how to lip each other. Like imagine just the pre-fight press conference between those two guys, just where they would go with their like disses and all that. Like it would just be wacky, it'd be weird. Like Ferguson would just be doing something weird. He'd have like this time he'd have like baseball gloves on, like batting gloves on, like to just freak him out. And Conor would just be going on about how like he's a loser with no friends and stuff like that, and like how his like wife had like Conor would go like scorched earth on Ferguson, and Ferguson would just like flip out, but not like get angry, but just like flip out just because he's Tony Ferguson, and it would just be so entertaining. And then the fight that happens as a result of that is a real toss-up. You know, it's a real.
But the thing is, UFC and Conor don't want this fight. The super fact is Tony can take it to the ground.
Yeah, no.
Like, and Conor's not good on the ground.
Let's think about this though. Let's think. Conor has been saying since his return after the Khabib fight that he is working on his ground game. His ground game is getting better. Let's say like the end game for Conor now, like, or just in this era of Conor's life, is it's about getting back in the position to fight Khabib. And one win against Tony Ferguson puts you in that conversation to say, okay, now he's ready to fight Khabib again. And if you need your ground, like eventually you're going to fight Khabib. If everything goes right, you're going to fight Khabib. And whether you like it or not, it's going to be taken to the ground. I would like to see him get some reps in with Tony Ferguson and prove himself. If he's been talking so much game about being better on the ground, it's like I'm working on it all the time. Like I'm getting so good. Like all this Conor McGregor talk. I'd love to see him back it up. Not right now with a fight against Khabib because that like he's not ready for that yet. But I'd love to see him back it up with a fight against Tony Ferguson.
I'd love to see that too, but at the end of the day too, Conor taps out one more time and his credibility is gone.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying it's set in stone like, oh, this is going to be perfect for Conor's career. There's a huge risk to this. There's a huge, but I don't see him getting in a position where you can justify a rematch against Khabib until he really proves himself in a fight that really the career's on the line.
See, here's the thing. Like